One of the loneliest things that can happen to a person is realizing that the people closest to them don't actually know them. Not completely. And the painful part is that most of them have no idea. They think they know you. They know your habits, your favorite foods, the shows you watch, the way you laugh, the way you react when you're stressed. They know pieces of your story, enough to believe they know the whole thing, but they don't. And every time someone says, "I know you so well," something inside you feels strangely empty, because you know there is an entire part of your life sitting silently behind that sentence. Part nobody sees, part nobody asks about, a part that has spent years hiding. Not because you wanted to hide, because at some point hiding felt safer than being fully known. And that's where this experience usually begins. Not with secrecy, with fear. Fear that one honest moment could change everything. Fear that one truth could make people see you differently. Fear that acceptance might have conditions attached to it. So you learn something. You learn how to survive. You learn how to edit. Not just your words. Your reactions. Your stories. Your excitement. Your disappointments. Your future plans. Your memories. Your entire existence slowly becomes filtered through one question. How much of myself is safe to show? At first it feels temporary. You tell yourself you're just waiting for the right moment. The right circumstances. The right amount of courage. But then months pass. Years pass. And eventually hiding stops feeling like something you're doing. Starts feeling like who you are. That's when things become dangerous. Because most people imagine being closeted as keeping a secret. But living with a secret and living inside a secret are two completely different experiences. One is something you carry. The other becomes the environment you live inside. And when you spend enough years inside that environment, it starts changing the way you experience the world. You begin noticing it in ordinary conversations. Someone asks who you're interested in. Your brain pauses. Not because you don't know the answer, because you're calculating. Calculating consequences. Calculating reactions. Calculating safety. So you edit. A detail disappears. Then another. Then another. Until the story is technically true, but no longer feels like yours. That moment happens thousands of times. And most people never see it. They see a conversation. You experience a negotiation. They hear an answer. You feel a loss. Small. Almost invisible. But repeated often enough, those losses begin to accumulate. Quietly. Over time. That's why many closeted people aren't exhausted because of who they are. They're exhausted because of how much energy it takes to constantly manage how they appear. The world sees a normal interaction. Your nervous system sees a risk assessment. The world sees a harmless question. Your brain starts scanning for danger. And eventually this hypervigilance follows you everywhere. You become someone who is always monitoring, always adjusting, always preparing, even when nothing is wrong, even when nobody is attacking you, even when you're completely safe. Because the mind remembers what the body learned. And what the body learned is simple. Visibility can have consequences. That lesson changes people. Quietly. Without them realizing it. Eventually you stop entering rooms wondering whether people will like you. You start entering rooms wondering which version of yourself should arrive first. The safest version. The easiest version. The least complicated version. The version least likely to create discomfort. And that's where another hidden wound begins. Because every time you choose safety over authenticity, A small distance forms between who you are and who people know. At first, the distance feels manageable. Then it grows. Until one day you find yourself surrounded by people who genuinely care about you, and you still feel completely alone. Not because nobody loves you, because nobody fully knows you. That is a very specific kind of loneliness. A loneliness many people struggle to explain, because it doesn't look like loneliness. You're not isolated. You're not abandoned. You're not invisible. At least not externally. People call you, invite you, talk to you, laugh with you. Yet underneath all of it exists a disturbing realization. They're connecting with a version of you, not the whole you. And after enough years, that realization starts hurting more than the secrecy itself. Because human beings don't just want attention. They want recognition. Attention notices you. Recognition understands you. Attention looks at you. Recognition sees you. And those are not the same thing. Not even close. That's why some closeted people develop a complicated relationship with validation. They crave it, but they can't fully absorb it. Someone compliments them, supports them, appreciates them, yet something feels missing. Because the validation lands on the edited version, not the hidden one. The praise reaches the performance, not the person. And that creates one of the most painful contradictions imaginable. You can feel accepted without feeling understood. You can feel included without feeling known. You can feel loved without feeling seen. That contradiction follows many closeted people for years, especially in relationships. Because intimacy becomes incredibly complicated when part of your reality remains hidden. You want closeness. You crave closeness. You dream about closeness. But closeness requires vulnerability. And vulnerability feels dangerous when you've spent years learning how to protect yourself. So you find ways to stay emotionally near people without ever becoming fully visible. You share enough. Reveal enough, open up enough, but never completely, never entirely, never in a way that feels irreversible. The relationship appears intimate, yet part of you remains behind a locked door, watching, waiting, protecting itself. And the longer this continues, the more normal it feels. Until one day you realize you've become an expert at connection, without ever feeling connected. That's the hidden tragedy. Many closeted people don't simply hide from others. Eventually they begin hiding from themselves. Because when you've spent years editing your thoughts, filtering your emotions, and monitoring your behavior, you start losing touch with what feels natural. You become self-conscious about things that should feel effortless. You become cautious about things that should feel joyful. You become suspicious of your own instincts. You learn how to survive. But survival and living are not the same thing. Survival minimizes risk. Living requires presence. And presence becomes difficult when part of your identity is constantly standing guard. Always watching, always calculating, always preparing for something that may never happen. That level of self-surveillance changes the way you experience life. It changes the way you experience love, friendship, belonging, even happiness. Because there is always a voice in the background asking the same question. What would happen if people knew everything? For some people, that question becomes so familiar they stop noticing it. It becomes background noise, a permanent soundtrack playing underneath every interaction, every relationship, every decision, until eventually another question appears, a deeper one, a more painful one. What if nobody would choose the real me? That fear sits underneath far more behavior than most people realize. It fuels emotional monitoring, people-pleasing, overthinking, self-editing, hypervigilance, and endless attempts to remain emotionally safe. But here's the cruel irony. The strategy designed to protect you from rejection often creates the exact loneliness you're trying to avoid. Because people can only connect with the version of you they can access. Nothing more, nothing less. And that means the deepest human need remains unmet. Not the need for approval, not the need for attention, not even the need for acceptance. The need to be fully known. Because the deepest human desire isn't visibility. It's recognition. It's reaching a point where you no longer have to rehearse your existence before sharing it. Where you no longer have to translate yourself into something easier for other people to understand. Where you no longer have to manage every word, every reaction, every detail of your life. Where you can simply exist. Honestly, fully. Without editing. Without performing. Without disappearing. And for many closeted people, that is what they have been searching for all along. Not permission. Not validation. Not approval. Just the rare and almost unbelievable experience of being completely known. And realizing that the real you was never the problem. The hiding was